Journeys are measured in many ways. Time and distance are obvious markers. But some journeys, the most difficult ones, are harder to gauge. Gill Hicks's journey began 10 years ago. In one terrifying moment, her life changed forever.
I'd expected to see a monster, and I didn't see a monster. I saw a young man, and I thought, what in the hell has led you, a 19-year-old man, to detonate a bomb, to kill yourself, to do this to me, to take so many lives? And that was clear in that moment from looking at that picture. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Breaking news we're getting from the PA Newswire that there's been reports of an explosion outside Liverpool Street Station.
July the 7th, 2005. Morning rush hour. Gill was on the tube, the Piccadilly line between King's Cross and Russell Square. On the same train, a suicide bomber, one of 4 who would bring carnage to the capital, the likes of which had never been witnessed in Britain before. Gill's injuries were so severe, she wasn't expected to survive.
I need to understand this. Not only do I need to understand it, I need to be part of a solution to never let this happen again. It's the big question, isn't it? How do we stop this ever happening again? And how do we each play a role? And that's what I think is the continuous journey that I'm still on 10 years later.
So we've got to look that way? Looking for the cars?
In the decade that has passed, Gill has forged a new life, the one she calls her second life. She's divorced, fallen in love, moved back to Australia and given birth to daughter Emily. She has also committed her life to the quest for peace. Gill's journey is shared by a community also ripped apart by the 7/7 attacks, but for a very different reason. Days after the explosions, it emerged that 3 of the 4 suicide bombers all came from the same West Yorkshire community. Mohammed Sadiq Khan, Shazad Tanveer, and Habib Hussain were all raised in Beeston, a small Leeds suburb. This revelation that these mass murderers who had once played on these narrow streets as children threatened to tear the community apart.
We were in utter shock because obviously some of the community members knew those individuals. They were perfectly decent people, and from school teacher to just young, ordinary, teenagers.
Beeston was gripped by fear. It was blamed for nurturing and protecting Britain's first suicide bombers.
I think certain members of the community definitely felt that fingers were pointed at them.
I describe it as a combination of the most surreal and traumatic experience I think I've ever encountered individually. Certainly the organisations encountered, and I'm sure the community would say they've encountered.
When the news is out there that actually it's an individual from your area that committed, there's naturally that sense of, perhaps saying, could my neighbour do the same thing?
The community closed ranks. Fear gave way to suspicion. Suspicion turned to anger and hostility towards outsiders. The following weeks, months and years would prove challenging. Many doubted Beeston would make it. 10 years on, Gill's journey, her quest for peace, is taking her back to Beeston, the home of the men who tried to kill her.
What's very interesting, of course, is that youngsters who were 10 years old in Beeston, who are now be 20. And I think it's that I'd be most interested in hearing about, of what is the youth there today? Because what was the impact of July 7 on them as a 10-year-old? Do they remember what that felt like? What impact did that have on them if they're Muslim and a 10-year-old Muslim, and feeling that suddenly they're front page news? How did that impact their parents?
The Hamara Centre is at the heart of community life in Beeston. 7/7 ringleader Mohammed Sadiq Khan was involved in its youth work, and it's here Gill came 2 years after the bombings.
There was a great pain from that community, a great sorrow that their boys had done such a horrific act. And I wanted to be the bridge of that pain.
Slightly apprehensive in meeting with Gill, because obviously clearly aware of her background and what had occurred, but it became very clear within the first 5 minutes of beginning to talk to her that this was an individual who wasn't really carrying that maybe bitterness that I thought might be resident in her as a result of what had happened to her.
It was on this trip a unity walk was planned from Leeds to London.
Let's touch the ground.
It took Gill 1 month to complete, but an agonising 6 months to recover.
It doesn't matter how many years have passed, I have the anticipation that we will meet as old friends today.
Are you anxious at all?
No, not at all, no. My first instinct was to reach out, and in that reaching out, metaphorically, their hands reached back, and that was the beginning of the relationship.
Hello. Let me be a gentleman.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to introduce you to my little. Thank you.
I haven't changed, Gill. You look exactly the same as 10 years ago. Remarkable.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, and you.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, and you. Absolutely. You keeping well?
Yeah.
You look well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Great to see you. I'm happy. Sad circumstances, but just God, I'm overwhelmed.
Wait till you meet Emily.
Okay, this is your little girl.
Yeah. She's 2.5.
Oh, okay. Bit of a tough journey yesterday.
I'm so sorry about
No, okay.
Emily.
Hi, Emily.
Look. This is Helen.
Hi, darling. How are you? She's got beautiful eyes. She looks. She thinks. Here we going.
Let's go. Let's go in, darling.
Wow, what's up?
Thank you very much.
Right. In the aftermath of 7/7, Hamara was involved with a lot of work to try to make sure that the community remained cohesive and enhance community relations. And Gill, who very unfortunately was caught up on the day itself, on the attack, was, well, I don't know. You guys all know me for 10 years, and it's very rare I'm lost for words, but today I'm lost for words, and I'm getting a bit overwhelmed because she was absolutely instrumental. And she came up from London, and she did some amazing initiatives with us. She was a keynote speaker at our conference. She did the walk talk. She actually walked from Leeds to London, you know. So, as I say,
I won't be doing that again.
it's not often I use the word inspired, or, you know, looking for inspiration from people maybe other than historical figures, but Jill's somebody that, you know, hugely inspired me, and I think it still influences our work today. But she's actually come all the way from Australia.
I didn't walk from Australia.
L'Oreal sponsor you.
Abseiling.
With so much focus and the spotlight being put on Muslim youth in particular on such a regular basis, that they are very integral to the debate and discussion.
Do you see them having been affected by growing up in the shadow of July 7th?
Yeah, definitely. Not only just in the shadow of July the 7th, but I think everything that's occurred, as I say, because so much has happened, hasn't it, in 10 years, as I say, particularly globally. And when we've had the dialogue and the discussion with them, there's definitely an impact. But equally, I have to say there's still a very positive, optimistic outlook from them.
Because Muslims couldn't have images inside the mosques
Yes.
and the pictures, and as a result they connected with God through calligraphy, through scripture,
Right.
and floral harmony. So we got both scriptures here, and also right at the top is like leaves and flowers branching out to each other.
Gill believes this engagement with young Muslims is crucial. The lure of Islamic State for young Britons has shown the need for a robust counter-narrative. It's one that young imams like Qari Asim, inspired by Gill's work, are trying hard to deliver.
We don't want even one more young person losing his or her life due to terrorism. Young Muslims, they're affected by the terror that may be caused elsewhere. We live in a global village where effects are felt on the school playground, they're felt in an office, they're felt just people catching the same bus, and that fuels further alienation.
The next few days will inevitably bring back the most painful of memories. The one thing that will give Gill Hicks the strength to carry on is the hope that her message of peace is getting through.
My anger is what keeps me focused. My anger is what keeps me wanting to make a positive difference and believing that actually, with all the billions of people in the world, there's actually more good than there is bad. And we've got to keep reminding people that actually humanity will prevail. I know that based on the last decade of work, that I will only be continuing the journey that I've started, to continuously work and advocate for a peace for us to know in our lifetime, but more importantly for me to leave that legacy to Amelie and for her to know a life without violent extremism. That's really important to me.